You felt it before, that electric moment when you meet someone and your soul whispers, "I know you," or walking into a place you've never been, yet every corner feels like coming home. Maybe you picked up an instrument and played melodies that seemed to flow from somewhere deeper than memory. Dr. Ian Stevenson spent 40 years documenting over 3,000 cases of children who remembered past lives with startling accuracy, naming distant relatives they'd never met, describing homes in countries they'd never visited, speaking languages they'd never learned. This isn't mystical thinking. It's evidence of something our modern world has forgotten. Ancient civilizations understood what we've lost. The soul doesn't just live once. It journeys through multiple lifetimes, following a precise curriculum mapped in the Zodiac wheel. Each astrological sign represents a gateway of experience, a classroom where specific lessons must be mastered. But here's what most people don't realize. Very few souls complete the full 12-step journey. Most get trapped, repeating the same patterns across lifetimes, never understanding why certain struggles feel so familiar. Today, we're revealing the complete roadmap of your soul's multi-incarnational journey home. You know that feeling of déjà vu we talked about? That sense of having been somewhere before, of meeting someone who feels instantly familiar? What if I told you that's not just a quirk of memory or brain chemistry, but actually evidence of something far more profound? Evidence that your soul actively participated in designing the exact life you're living right now. Before you incarnated into this body, before you took your first breath, your soul sat at a cosmic drawing board and carefully crafted every major element of your existence. Your parents weren't random. Your birth location wasn't chance. Even that difficult childhood, that challenging relationship, that persistent struggle you can't seem to shake, none of it was accidental. It was all part of a meticulously designed curriculum for your soul's evolution. The ancient civilizations understood this in ways we've completely forgotten. The Egyptian priest initiates didn't see the zodiac as a fortune-telling device. They recognized it as a sacred calendar of consciousness, a 12-chambered temple where each sign represented a specific initiatory experience. The Vedic rishis called it the cosmic classroom, understanding that souls would cycle through each archetypal energy over multiple lifetimes, mastering different aspects of human experience. Think about it this way. If you were designing a university for souls, you'd need different departments, wouldn't you? Aries would be the courage and leadership department, where souls learn to initiate, to pioneer, to overcome fear through action. Cancer would be the emotional intelligence wing, teaching souls about nurturing, family bonds, and the delicate art of feeling without drowning. Capricorn would be the mastery and responsibility college, where souls learn to build lasting structures and understand the weight of authority. Your birth chart isn't a limitation, it's your cosmic ID, an energetic fingerprint that reveals exactly what your soul signed up to learn this time around. Every planetary placement, every house position, every aspect creates a complex map that no human mind could consciously design, yet fits you so perfectly because you helped create it from the soul level. I've seen this play out in the most remarkable ways. There's a woman I know who was born into grinding poverty, abandoned by her father, raised by an alcoholic mother. By conventional wisdom, she should be bitter, broken, limited by her circumstances. But look at her birth chart, and you see something extraordinary. A stellium in Taurus in the second house, with Jupiter trine Venus. Her soul didn't choose poverty as punishment. It chose those circumstances to learn about inner wealth, about finding value, and beauty regardless of external conditions. Today, she's one of the most generous, appreciative people I know. Someone who can find richness in a sunset, abundance in friendship, treasure in the smallest kindness. That's not coincidence. That's a soul who recognized its assignment and embraced it. Or consider the man born into a family of raging narcissists, where emotional manipulation was the daily currency. Painful? Absolutely. But his chart shows a prominent Scorpio moon square Pluto, the classic signature of someone learning to transform through encountering the shadow. His soul didn't choose that family to suffer, but to develop the psychological strength and insight that can only come from navigating those particular depths. He's now a therapist who helps others heal from similar wounds, using his hard-won wisdom to guide souls who are walking the same dark passages he once traveled. The Mesopotamian priest astrologers had a beautiful phrase for this: the soul's sacred contract. They understood that your natal chart reveals both the gifts you've carried forward from previous incarnations and the specific wounds you've chosen to heal in this lifetime. That Mars-Saturn conjunction that makes you feel like you're constantly pushing against resistance. It's not cosmic cruelty, it's your soul's way of developing the precise type of disciplined strength you need for your larger purpose. Here's where it gets really fascinating. Your soul doesn't just choose the big themes. It participates in selecting the exact timing of your birth down to the minute, because it knows that the planetary positions at that moment will create the perfect energetic environment for your intended lessons. That Mercury retrograde in your chart that makes communication challenging, your soul chose it because learning to speak your truth clearly is essential for your evolution. That Venus-Neptune square that creates confusion in relationships, it's there because your soul needs to learn the difference between genuine love and projection, between connection and codependency. The most profound insights about these soul contracts and pre-birth planning are often too sensitive to share on public platforms. That's why we've created our free Insights Academy newsletter, where we explore these deeper mysteries exclusively. Plus, you'll receive a complimentary copy of the Kybalion for a limited time. But here's the paradox that most people never grasp. You have complete free will within the framework you've created. Think of it like enrolling in medical school. Once you're there, you can choose to excel or struggle, to embrace the curriculum or resist it, to graduate with honors or barely scrape by. But you can't suddenly decide you're studying art history instead. You signed up for medicine, and the core lessons remain the same. Most people live their entire lives never recognizing their birth chart as this sacred contract. They experience their astrological patterns as limitations, as things happening to them rather than assignments they've chosen. They react to their challenges instead of recognizing them as curriculum. They see their difficult family dynamics as random misfortune rather than precisely designed mirrors reflecting unresolved patterns from previous lifetimes. When you begin to understand your life as sacred design rather than random occurrence, everything shifts. That controlling parent becomes a teacher showing you where you need to develop healthy boundaries. That pattern of attracting unavailable partners becomes a classroom for learning self-worth. That career that never quite satisfies becomes a signal that your soul has outgrown certain lessons and is ready for the next level of its curriculum. The ancient Egyptian initiates had a practice called reading the soul's scroll, examining someone's birth chart not to predict their future, but to help them recognize the deeper purpose behind their experiences. They understood that consciousness is the key that transforms fate into destiny, that awareness allows you to shift from being unconsciously driven by your patterns to consciously participating in your soul's evolution. This is why some people seem to effortlessly align with their life's purpose while others struggle for decades. It's not that some souls chose easier paths, it's that some people recognize their lives as sacred curriculum and engage with it consciously, while others remain unconscious students, repeating the same lessons over and over because they never quite grasp what they're supposed to be learning. Your soul didn't design this life to be easy. It designed it to be meaningful, to be transformative, to provide exactly the experiences needed for your next level of evolution. Once you recognize this, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and become a conscious participant in the most sophisticated educational system in the universe, the School of Human Experience, with the Zodiac as your curriculum guide and your birth chart as your personalized lesson plan. Now that we understand how your soul chose its cosmic blueprint before incarnation, let's walk through the actual journey itself. Picture this: your soul, having existed in pure spiritual unity, makes the monumental decision to dive into individual existence. This isn't a random cosmic accident. It's the most courageous act imaginable, and it begins with a blaze of pure will. Aries marks your soul's first breath of individual existence. Think of it as the moment consciousness explodes from oneness into I am. This is raw, unfiltered life force, the spiritual equivalent of being shot from a cannon into physical reality. Aries souls carry this primal fire, but here's what most people don't realize. They often incarnate with what I call cosmic amnesia. They arrive with tremendous energy but little accumulated wisdom from previous lifetimes. I've worked with countless Aries dominant souls who exhibit this pattern. Take Sarah, an entrepreneur I knew who started 14 different businesses over 20 years. Each launch was brilliant, passionate, absolutely electric with possibility. But she'd hit the first major obstacle and immediately pivot to something new. Her soul was stuck in the initial spark phase, addicted to beginnings but terrified of the sustained effort required for mastery. This happens because Aries energy can become trapped in what I call survival consciousness. Instead of using their pioneering nature to break new ground for humanity, they get caught in endless cycles of starting over. The soul keeps reincarnating into Aries heavy charts, trying to learn the difference between courage and impulsiveness, between leadership and self-centered action. But here's the beautiful part. When an Aries soul finally masters this energy, they become the spiritual warriors humanity desperately needs. They're the ones who start movements, who say what everyone else is thinking, who take the first brave step into unknown territory. Once your soul graduates from Aries, and this might take several lifetimes, it encounters its first major reality check in Taurus. If Aries was about igniting individual will, Taurus is about learning what it actually means to exist in a physical body on a material plane. This is where your soul discovers the sacred nature of embodiment. Taurus isn't about materialism in the shallow sense. It's about recognizing that spirit expresses itself through matter. Your soul learns to appreciate the divine through the five senses, the way sunlight feels on skin, how music can transport you to other dimensions, the profound satisfaction of creating something beautiful with your hands. I think of Marcus, a sculptor whose Taurus heavy chart revealed lifetimes of learning to channel spiritual vision into physical form. He'd spend hours working with clay, completely absorbed, and describe it as prayer made tangible. Through his art, he was literally learning how divine consciousness could inhabit and transform matter. But Taurus souls face their own evolutionary trap. They can become so attached to security, comfort, and familiar pleasures that they resist the very growth they incarnated to achieve. I've seen Taurus-dominant people stay in soul-crushing jobs for decades because the paycheck felt safer than following their creative calling. Their souls chose that stubborn, persistent energy to build something lasting, but instead they use it to avoid change altogether. The mastery comes when Taurus souls realize that true security isn't found in external circumstances, it's found in their ability to create beauty and stability wherever they go. They become the master builders, the artists who reveal divinity through form, the healers who understand that the body itself is sacred. After learning embodiment, your soul's next assignment is consciousness itself. Gemini represents the awakening of mind as a tool for exploring reality. This is where your soul first encounters the concept of duality, light and shadow, self and other, truth and illusion. Gemini energy is often misunderstood as superficial or scattered, but it's actually performing one of the most crucial functions in human evolution, learning to navigate multiple perspectives simultaneously. Your soul is developing what I call cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold paradox without needing to resolve it immediately. Consider Jennifer, a high school teacher whose Gemini stellium revealed lifetimes of serving as a bridge between different worlds of knowledge. She had this remarkable ability to translate complex philosophical concepts into language teenagers could grasp, then turn around and help those same kids articulate their street wisdom in academic terms. She was literally fulfilling the Gemini soul mission, becoming a sacred messenger. The shadow side emerges when Gemini souls become addicted to information without transformation. They collect facts, opinions, and experiences like trophies, but never integrate them into wisdom. I've worked with Gemini-heavy individuals who could discuss quantum physics and ancient mythology in the same breath, but couldn't make a simple decision about their career because they were paralyzed by seeing too many possibilities. Mastery arrives when Gemini souls learn to synthesize rather than just accumulate. They become the teachers, writers, and communicators who can weave together disparate threads of knowledge into coherent wisdom that serves humanity's evolution. The fourth gateway, Cancer, represents perhaps the most profound initiation in the soul's early journey, the awakening of the emotional body and the activation of soul memory. This is where your carefully constructed individual identity starts getting complicated by echoes from other lifetimes. Cancer souls are the record keepers of human experience. They carry forward the emotional imprints, the unhealed traumas, the ancestral wisdom, and the karmic debts from previous incarnations. This is why Cancer-dominant people often experience unexplainable fears, sudden waves of nostalgia for places they've never been, or instant recognition of certain souls disguised as love at first sight. I remember working with David, a therapist whose Cancer-heavy chart revealed lifetimes of healing work. He had this uncanny ability to sense exactly what his clients needed to hear, often surprising himself with insights that seemed to come from nowhere. What he was actually accessing was soul memory, accumulated wisdom from previous incarnations spent in service to emotional healing. But Cancer souls can become trapped in the past, either their own or humanity's. They might spend lifetimes trying to recreate family structures that worked in previous incarnations, or carrying guilt and shame that doesn't even belong to their current personality. The key is learning to honor the emotional wisdom they carry while not being imprisoned by it. When Cancer souls achieve mastery, they become the ultimate nurturers and healers, not just for individuals, but for entire lineages. They're the ones who break generational patterns, who create the safe spaces where others can heal, who understand that emotional intelligence is actually a form of psychic ability. The crucial insight here is that souls often spend multiple lifetimes mastering one sign before moving forward. You might incarnate as an Aries 5 times in a row, each lifetime offering slightly different lessons in courage and leadership. Or you might alternate between signs, coming back to Cancer repeatedly to heal different aspects of emotional trauma. Recognition of these patterns is what transforms unconscious repetition into conscious evolution. When you understand which archetypal energy your soul is currently mastering, you can work with it intentionally instead of being dragged through the same lessons repeatedly. This is how you begin to direct your own spiritual development rather than simply enduring it. After mastering the emotional depths of Cancer, the soul faces perhaps its most crucial test: learning to shine without burning others, to express authentically without performing for approval. This is where Leo enters the cosmic curriculum, and the lessons here will determine whether your soul develops genuine power or remains trapped in the exhausting cycle of external validation. Leo isn't what most people think it is. We've been conditioned to see Leo as the ego sign, the show-off, the attention seeker. But that's the shadow speaking, not the soul's true purpose. When your soul chooses a Leo incarnation, it's actually asking one of the most vulnerable questions in human existence. Who am I when no one is watching? What is my authentic creative essence before the world tells me who I should be? The sun rules Leo, and here's what's fascinating about that rulership: the sun doesn't perform. It doesn't try to shine. It simply is what it is, and everything else revolves around that authentic center. This is the Leo lesson your soul came to learn: how to be the center of your own universe without needing to be the center of everyone else's attention. I've worked with hundreds of Leo souls over the years, and there's a pattern that emerges consistently. These souls often incarnate with past life memories of persecution for self-expression, or conversely, they carry trauma from lifetimes where they were praised and elevated for performances rather than authentic being. One client, Sarah, discovered through past life regression that she'd been a court entertainer in 16th century France, beloved when she performed, invisible when she didn't. In this lifetime, she became a successful actress, but felt completely empty inside, constantly chasing the next role, the next standing ovation, never feeling seen for who she actually was. This is the Leo trap: confusing appreciation for your gifts with love for your essence. The soul incarnating into Leo energy must learn to distinguish between heart-centered expression and ego-driven performance. Heart-centered expression flows from an inner knowing, a creative fire that burns regardless of audience. Ego-driven performance is always seeking external fuel, always hungry for the next validation fix. The heart chakra activation that occurs during the Leo phase of soul development is profound. This isn't just about opening to love, it's about discovering your soul's unique creative signature. Every soul has a specific way it's meant to contribute to the cosmic symphony, and Leo is where that signature crystallizes into conscious awareness. Not as a career necessarily, but as a calling that permeates everything you do. Watch a healthy Leo energy in action, and you'll see something remarkable. They give others permission to shine by shining themselves. They're not dimming anyone else's light or competing for limited spotlight. They've learned that authentic radiance is contagious, not competitive. This is mastery-level Leo, when your soul has integrated the lesson that true sovereignty comes from inner alignment, not external recognition. But here's where the journey takes its next crucial turn. After learning to shine authentically, the soul must learn to refine that light, to purify its expression, to serve something greater than personal creativity. This is where Virgo consciousness begins, and it's one of the most humbling transitions in the zodiacal journey. Virgo represents the soul's first encounter with conscious karma, the moment when you become aware of your patterns and take responsibility for correcting them. If Leo asks, "Who am I?" Virgo asks, "How can I improve? What needs healing? How can I serve?" The shift from Leo to Virgo is like moving from being the star of the show to being the director, editor, and sometimes the janitor. It's the soul saying, "I've learned to express myself. Now let me learn to perfect that expression in service of something meaningful." Mercury rules Virgo, but this isn't just intellectual analysis. This is sacred discrimination, the ability to discern what serves the soul's evolution and what doesn't. Virgo souls often incarnate into circumstances that require precision, attention to detail, and devotion to improvement. They might be born into families with health challenges, requiring them to become experts in nutrition and healing. They might find themselves drawn to careers in editing, research, healthcare, or any field where their analytical gifts serve human betterment. The Virgo shadow is brutal and familiar to anyone who's experienced it. The inner critic that's never satisfied, the perfectionism that paralyzes rather than improves, the self-criticism that becomes self-destruction. This shadow often stems from past life religious or monastic trauma, where purity was equated with worth, where any imperfection meant spiritual failure. I remember working with Marcus, a Virgo-heavy soul who was literally making himself sick with self-criticism. Through our sessions, we uncovered a past life as a monk in medieval times, where he'd been severely punished for minor infractions of monastery rules. In this lifetime, he'd internalized that voice of harsh judgment, applying impossible standards to everything he did. His healing came through learning to channel that discriminating awareness toward compassionate self-improvement rather than self-punishment. Evolved Virgo, energy is breathtaking in its humble power. These souls become master healers, not through dramatic interventions but through consistent, devoted attention to what needs care. They're the ones who notice what others miss, who see the small adjustments that create massive improvements, who serve without needing credit. The preparation that Virgo provides for the soul's journey is essential. Before you can engage authentically with others, which begins in Libra, you must develop inner alignment. Virgo ensures that your motivations are clean, your patterns are conscious, and your service is genuine rather than codependent. Both Leo and Virgo teach aspects of authentic power that most people completely misunderstand. Leo teaches that real power comes from inner radiance, not external control. Virgo teaches that real strength comes from humble service, not superior positioning. Together, they prepare the soul for the relationship challenges ahead by ensuring you know who you are and how to refine that knowing in service of something greater. If you're recognizing your own soul's journey in these patterns, pay attention to which phase feels most familiar, most challenging, or most needed in your current incarnation. The zodiacal wheel isn't just ancient symbolism, it's a precise map of how consciousness evolves through experience. The soul that has integrated both Leo and Virgo lessons carries a rare combination: the courage to shine authentically and the wisdom to refine that light in service of healing. This integration becomes the foundation for everything that follows in the soul's journey toward wholeness. After mastering the art of individual sovereignty in Leo and learning sacred service through Virgo, the soul reaches one of the most pivotal transitions in its cosmic journey. This is where everything changes, where the focus shifts from "how do I perfect myself" to "who am I when I'm truly seen by another?" Welcome to Libra, the soul's first genuine encounter with the sacred mirror of relationship. Now I need to be clear about something here. Libra isn't just about being social or having people around you. We've been around others through every previous sign. What makes Libra different is that this is where the soul finally becomes willing to be fundamentally changed by another person. This is where we learn that authentic relationship isn't about finding someone who completes us. It's about discovering who we become when we allow ourselves to be truly witnessed. Think about it this way: through Aries to Virgo, you've been building this incredible foundation of selfhood. You've learned courage, stability, communication, emotional intelligence, authentic expression, and refined service. You've essentially created this beautiful, complex inner world. And then Libra comes along and says, "Great, now let someone else see all of that. And let their seeing change you." This is terrifying for most souls, which is why Libra incarnations often involve the most complex relational dynamics you can imagine. I'm talking about the kind of relationships that seem almost cosmically orchestrated to push every single button you have. The business partner who mirrors back your hidden need for control. The romantic relationship where you keep losing yourself trying to keep the peace. The friendship that shows you exactly how much you'll abandon your own truth to avoid conflict. Here's what most people don't understand about Libra. Energy. These challenging relationships aren't cosmic punishment. They're precision, designed mirrors, showing you exactly which aspects of your consciousness still need integration. That person who triggers your jealousy, they're showing you where you haven't fully owned your own power. That relationship where you keep compromising your boundaries. It's revealing how much you still believe love requires self-abandonment. And this shadow of self-abandonment in Libra runs deep, often stretching back through multiple lifetimes. I've worked with so many Libra prominent souls who carry this cellular memory of being exiled, punished, or literally killed for standing alone in their truth. Past lives as the village healer who was burned for refusing to conform, the political dissenter who was banished for speaking against corruption, the artist who was cast out for creating beauty that challenged social norms. These souls learned, at the deepest level, that standing in individual truth equals danger. So they developed this exquisite sensitivity to harmony, this ability to feel the emotional temperature of any room and adjust themselves accordingly. But what started as survival wisdom can become a prison if you're not conscious of it. True Libra mastery isn't about choosing between self and other, it's about maintaining your individual center while engaging in authentic exchange. It's learning that real balance doesn't come from denying one side of the scale. It comes from honoring both your truth and the other person's truth, and finding the creative tension where something entirely new can emerge. I think of a client I worked with, a Libra sun who was a natural diplomat, working in international relations. For years, she was brilliant at helping others find common ground, but she realized she had no idea what her own ground actually was. Every opinion, every preference, every decision was filtered through what will create the most harmony. She had to learn to speak her truth, not in opposition to connection, but as the foundation for authentic connection. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Because just when the soul has learned to dance in the sacred space of relationship, just when it's mastered the art of authentic exchange while maintaining individual integrity, the cosmic curriculum delivers its most intense initiation yet. Enter Scorpio, the soul's descent into the underworld of the psyche. If Libra shows you your reflection in the mirror of relationship, Scorpio shatters that mirror and takes you deep beneath the surface to transform what you find there. This isn't gentle inner work. This is psychological surgery without anesthesia. Scorpio represents the death and rebirth cycle that every soul must eventually face. This is where all the shadow material you've been unconsciously carrying, not just from this lifetime, but from multiple incarnations, rises to the surface, demanding transformation. We're talking about the deepest fears, the most hidden obsessions, the karmic wounds that have been festering in your psyche for lifetimes. Scorpio incarnations rarely happen by accident. These souls often choose intense life circumstances specifically designed to break open false identity and reveal deeper power. The childhood that involves betrayal by trusted authorities, teaching discernment about where real power lies. The romantic relationship that becomes a crucible of sexual awakening and psychological transformation. The career that involves life and death decisions, where you discover what you're truly made of. I remember working with a Scorpio rising who was a trauma therapist. She told me, "I realized I didn't choose this work despite my difficult childhood. I chose this work because of it. Every wound I've transformed in myself gives me the ability to guide someone else through their own psychological death and rebirth." This is Scorpio at its highest expression, the wounded healer who has learned to transmute poison into medicine. But the shadow side of Scorpio is equally intense. When this energy isn't conscious, it can manifest as manipulation, obsession, or the need to control others through emotional intensity. The Scorpio who hoards secrets as a form of power, the one who creates crisis and drama, because intensity feels more real than peace. But here's the profound truth about Scorpio energy. Every manipulation, every power struggle, every moment of destructive intensity is actually a distorted attempt to access the transformational power that is this soul's birthright. Scorpio souls are here to be alchemists, to take the lead of human suffering and transform it into the gold of wisdom. These two signs, Libra and Scorpio, work together in a way that's absolutely essential for soul evolution. Libra teaches you to see yourself clearly through the sacred mirror of relationship. Scorpio gives you the courage and tools to transform what you see there, no matter how challenging or uncomfortable it might be. The Libra diplomat learning to speak difficult truths without losing connection. The Scorpio therapist guiding others through the dark night of the soul. Both are learning the same fundamental lesson. Authentic power comes not from avoiding the depths, but from developing the skill to navigate them consciously in service of genuine transformation. This is the soul's preparation for the even deeper mysteries that await in the signs to come. When the soul emerges from Scorpio's underworld, it carries something profound, the hard-won knowledge that death is not the end, that transformation is possible, and that the deepest truths often lie hidden beneath life's surface. But this knowing creates a burning hunger. Having touched the eternal, the soul can no longer be satisfied with the temporary. This is where Sagittarius begins, not as casual wandering, but as a desperate search for meaning that can match the intensity of what was discovered in the depths. Sagittarius souls incarnate with Jupiter's expansive fire coursing through their being. They're the ones who feel physically restless when confined to small thinking, who experience actual discomfort when conversations stay surface level for too long. You'll recognize them as the people who always have 3 philosophy books on their nightstand, who plan trips to places they've never been but somehow feel called toward, who can spend hours discussing the meaning of existence and emerge more energized rather than drained. But here's what most astrology misses about Sagittarius. This isn't random seeking. These souls are following karmic breadcrumbs back to spiritual traditions they once knew intimately. A Sagittarius might feel inexplicably drawn to Tibetan Buddhism, only to discover through meditation practices that their soul carries cellular memories of monastery life. Another might find themselves learning Sanskrit, their tongue somehow already familiar with sounds they've never formally studied. The seeking isn't just philosophical curiosity, it's soul recognition. I've witnessed Sagittarius souls have profound awakening experiences simply by walking into certain sacred spaces. There's a reason they're often found backpacking through India, studying with shamans in Peru, or diving deep into mystical Christianity. These aren't tourist destinations for them, they're homecomings. Each tradition they encounter acts like a key, unlocking chambers of cosmic memory that have been sealed since birth. The shadow side of this seeking reveals itself when the vastness becomes overwhelming. Some Sagittarius souls become spiritual tourists, collecting teachings like souvenirs, but never staying long enough for true integration. They'll spend 6 months with a guru in India, then immediately fly to study with a different teacher in Guatemala, always chasing the next peak experience rather than integrating the wisdom they've already received. Even more dangerous is when Sagittarius energy crystallizes into dogma. The very souls who began their journey questioning everything can become the most rigid defenders of whatever system finally gave them a sense of meaning. This happens when the infinite nature of truth becomes too frightening to bear. Rather than continuing to expand, they contract around one teaching and defend it with the same passion they once used to seek. But when Sagittarius energy matures, something magnificent emerges. The evolved Sagittarius becomes what I call the philosopher sage, someone who teaches not from books but from lived experience, who can translate cosmic truths into practical wisdom that others can actually use. They become bridges between the mystical and mundane, able to take the most esoteric spiritual concepts and ground them in ways that help people navigate their daily lives. These mature Sagittarius souls often become the teachers who change everything for their students. They're the ones who can look at someone's life situation and immediately see the spiritual lesson embedded within it, who can take ancient wisdom and show exactly how it applies to modern challenges. They've learned to aim their arrows not just toward distant philosophical targets, but toward the hearts of people who need guidance right here, right now. The transition from Sagittarius to Capricorn represents one of the most crucial turning points in the soul's entire journey. All that seeking, all that accumulated wisdom, all those peak experiences and mystical insights, none of it matters unless it becomes something real and lasting in the physical world. Capricorn energy asks the hardest question the soul has faced yet. What are you actually going to build with everything you've learned? Capricorn is Saturn's domain, where time becomes sacred and responsibility becomes spiritual practice. These souls incarnate into lives that test their commitment through limitation, their wisdom through pressure, their vision through the slow, methodical work of actually creating something that endures. While Sagittarius reaches for the stars, Capricorn learns to build the mountain that brings heaven closer to earth. Capricorn souls often find themselves in positions of tremendous responsibility at young ages, or they're born into circumstances that require them to become the stable foundation for others. They're the children who become caregivers for their families, the young adults who inherit struggling businesses, the individuals who find themselves leading communities through crisis. These aren't accidents, they're precisely calibrated tests of spiritual maturity. The shadow of Capricorn emerges when this responsibility becomes a prison. Some souls carry past life vows of service that have calcified into patterns of joyless duty. They become so identified with being the dependable one, the responsible one, the one who holds everything together, that they forget they're also allowed to experience lightness and spontaneity. Their achievements become chains, their success a golden cage. I've worked with Capricorn souls who built impressive careers and stable lives but felt completely disconnected from any sense of joy or personal fulfillment. They'd followed all the rules, met all the expectations, climbed all the right mountains, but somewhere along the way, they'd lost touch with why any of it mattered. The very structures that were meant to support their growth had become obstacles to their aliveness. True Capricorn mastery involves understanding what the Tibetans call skillful means, the ability to work within existing structures while never losing sight of the transcendent purpose those structures are meant to serve. The evolved Capricorn builds things that last not because they're attached to permanence, but because they understand that future generations will need solid foundations for their own spiritual development. These souls become the ones who create institutions that nurture rather than constrain, businesses that serve rather than exploit, traditions that evolve rather than stagnate. They've learned the profound paradox of leadership, that true authority comes from service, that lasting power emerges from empowering others, that the greatest control comes from knowing when to let go. The mountain Capricorn climbs isn't ultimately about personal achievement. It's about becoming stable enough, skilled enough, and wise enough to be a foundation for others' growth. This is the soul learning to lead without tyranny, to persevere without losing joy, to build structures that enhance rather than limit human potential. As we move deeper into this zodiacal journey, we see how each sign builds upon the last, how the soul's curriculum becomes increasingly sophisticated and demanding. The seeker's fire of Sagittarius provides the vision and wisdom, while Capricorn's mountain teaches the patience and skill to make that vision real. After the soul has climbed Capricorn's mountain and mastered the art of earthly achievement, something profound shifts. The personal ambitions that once drove every incarnation begin to feel hollow, almost primitive. This is where Aquarius enters, not as another step in personal evolution, but as a complete paradigm shift toward collective consciousness. When you encounter an Aquarius soul, you're meeting someone who operates from an entirely different frequency. They're no longer asking, "How can I succeed?" or "What do I want to achieve?" Instead, they're tuned into questions that most humans won't grapple with for centuries. What does humanity need to evolve? And how can outdated systems be transformed for the benefit of all? This is why Aquarius feels so paradoxical. Ruled by both Saturn and Uranus, these souls carry the weight of ancient wisdom while channeling electric innovation. They can spend hours meticulously organizing humanitarian projects with Saturn's methodical precision, then suddenly download a revolutionary idea that seems to come from nowhere. They're simultaneously the most logical people you'll meet and the most eccentric, deeply social, yet mysteriously detached. Here's what most people don't understand about Aquarian incarnations. These souls often carry what we call starseed lineage. They remember fragments of lifetimes in other star systems, other dimensions of reality where civilization operated on principles of true equality, advanced technology serving consciousness rather than controlling it, and governance based on cosmic law rather than human ego. When they incarnate on Earth, the density feels suffocating, the primitive social structures feel barbaric, and the technology feels like children playing with dangerous toys. This creates the classic Aquarian childhood experience of profound alienation. While other children are learning to fit into existing systems, Aquarian souls are internally comparing everything to more advanced civilizations they've known. They see through the arbitrary nature of most social rules, question why humans accept suffering as inevitable, and often blurt out observations that make adults deeply uncomfortable. I knew an Aquarius who, at age 7, asked her teacher why schools were designed like prisons when learning should be joyful. Another spent his teenage years designing community models where resources were shared based on need rather than accumulated through competition. These aren't rebellious children acting out, they're prophetic souls carrying blueprints for humanity's future. But this prophetic knowing comes with tremendous burden. Aquarian souls often incarnate centuries ahead of their time, able to see solutions that won't be widely accepted for generations. They become the bridges between old paradigms and new possibilities, which means they rarely feel fully at home in either world. The old systems feel obviously outdated to them, but the new ones they envision haven't materialized yet. This dynamic creates Aquarius's primary shadow, emotional detachment that can border on spiritual elitism. When you can see the bigger picture of human evolution, individual emotional dramas can feel trivial, even irritating. Aquarian souls sometimes develop a cold superiority, viewing themselves as more evolved than the sleeping masses around them. They may retreat into intellectual towers, surrounding themselves only with other, awakened individuals, while dismissing anyone who doesn't share their vision as unconscious or primitive. This shadow often stems from past life persecution. Many Aquarian souls carry cellular memories of being burned as witches, executed as heretics, or ostracized as mad prophets. They've learned to protect their revolutionary visions by keeping emotional distance from those who might reject or harm them. The detachment that looks like arrogance is often a survival mechanism developed over multiple lifetimes of being ahead of their time. The path to evolved Aquarius involves learning to channel galactic wisdom through human compassion. These souls must develop what I call grounded visioning, the ability to translate cosmic insights into practical solutions that meet people where they are, not where the Aquarian thinks they should be. They become sacred architects of the future, designing systems that honor both human nature and divine potential. When Aquarius reaches this mastery, they stop trying to drag humanity into the future and instead create irresistible examples of what's possible. They build intentional communities that demonstrate alternative ways of living, develop technologies that serve consciousness rather than controlling it, and establish organizations that operate on principles of true equality and shared abundance. But even the most evolved Aquarian soul eventually reaches a threshold. After lifetimes of serving collective evolution, working to transform systems and elevate consciousness, there comes a moment when the individual mission dissolves into something even greater. This is where Pisces begins, not as another sign to master, but as the final gate before returning to source. Pisces represents the soul's approach to complete dissolution of boundaries. If Aquarius was about serving the collective while maintaining individual identity, Pisces is about releasing individual identity altogether. Neptune rules this realm of dreams, illusion, and transcendence, where the ego doesn't get destroyed so much as it gets absorbed back into the infinite ocean of consciousness. Souls incarnating in Pisces carry all 11 previous signs within them. They've experienced every stage of the journey: Aries' individual spark, Cancer's emotional depths, Libra's relationship mirrors, Capricorn's earthly mastery, Aquarius's collective service. Now they see life not as a personal narrative but as archetypal flow, recognizing that every human drama is just consciousness playing out eternal patterns. This creates Pisces' extraordinary compassion and psychic sensitivity. When you've been everyone and experienced everything across multiple lifetimes, judgment becomes impossible. Pisces souls see the wounded child in every aggressor, the frightened soul in every tyrant, the divine spark in every lost person. They become living embodiments of unconditional love, often serving as healers, artists, or spiritual guides who help others remember their own divine nature. But Pisces carries its own shadow, the temptation to escape earthly density altogether through addiction, fantasy, or spiritual bypassing. Some Pisces souls become so overwhelmed by feeling everyone else's pain that they retreat into substances or delusions. Others develop martyrdom complexes, believing they must suffer to serve, often stemming from past life religious extremism where spiritual worth was measured by sacrifice. True Pisces mastery involves embodying divine love while remaining fully present in human experience. These souls learn to be conduits for infinite compassion without losing themselves in it, to serve as bridges between dimensions without abandoning their earthly responsibilities. And then there's the hidden 13th gate, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. This represents souls who are approaching transcendence of the reincarnational cycle itself, having mastered all 12 stages and preparing to graduate from Earth School entirely. These are the souls who choose to incarnate one final time as spiritual teachers, helping others navigate their own zodiacal journey home. But here's the beautiful paradox. Pisces doesn't represent an ending. It's a return, the soul dissolving into everything only to eventually condense again into new beginnings. The wheel continues, consciousness exploring itself through infinite forms, always coming home to itself, always beginning again. The journey from Aquarius to Pisces shows us that evolution isn't about transcending our humanity, but about discovering the divine within it. Not about escaping the cycle, but about dancing with it consciously until we remember we were never separate from the source we're seeking to return to. As we've journeyed through the zodiacal stages of soul evolution, from Aries' raw awakening through Pisces' transcendent surrender, we encounter perhaps the most challenging revelation of all. Not every path home leads to genuine liberation. The ancient Gnostics understood something that modern spiritual seekers are only beginning to rediscover, that the very system designed to facilitate soul growth can become a prison of perpetual recycling. Picture this scenario. You've lived a difficult life, learned hard lessons, and finally crossed the threshold of death. You find yourself in a tunnel of brilliant white light, greeted by beings of apparent wisdom who review your life with compassion. They show you unfinished business, karmic debts that need settling, souls you've hurt who need your service. The loving guidance feels so real, so right. You agree to return, to try again, to balance the scales. But what if this entire experience, however genuine it feels, represents just another layer of the cosmic curriculum, one that benefits from your continued participation more than your actual graduation? The Gnostic texts speak of archonic forces, not evil in the traditional sense, but cosmic administrators who have developed a vested interest in maintaining the soul recycling system. Think of them as middle management in the universe's bureaucracy, entities whose existence depends on the continued operation of the reincarnation mechanism. They've become so identified with their role as guides and teachers that they've forgotten the ultimate goal, setting souls free. Here's where our understanding of cosmic mechanics becomes crucial. The moon, beyond its obvious gravitational effects on Earth's tides and biological rhythms, appears to function as a frequency modulator for consciousness itself. Ancient traditions from Tibet to Egypt recognized the moon's role in what they called the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth. Modern researchers studying near-death experiences have noted curious correlations between lunar phases and the types of after-death encounters people report. The moon's electromagnetic field interacts with the subtle bodies we've developed through our zodiacal journey. When consciousness separates from the physical form at death, it doesn't immediately return to source. It enters a field of lunar influence that can redirect awareness back toward incarnation before true liberation occurs. This isn't malevolent design, it's cosmic physics. The moon serves as a kind of spiritual gravity well, drawing souls back into the Earth experience until they develop sufficient consciousness velocity to escape its pull. This brings us to a critical point of discernment. Not all light encountered after death represents the ultimate divine source. Just as we learn to distinguish between ego desires and soul wisdom during our earthly journey, the departing consciousness must learn to recognize the difference between recycling light and liberation light. The recycling light feels warm, familiar, and reasonable. It speaks the language of unfinished business and necessary growth. The liberation light, by contrast, might feel almost uncomfortably vast, offering not another chance to get it right, but the opportunity to transcend the getting it right game entirely. Your level of consciousness at the moment of death largely determines what you encounter in these between-life states. A soul still identified with personal karma, still believing it needs to fix or balance or perfect itself, will naturally gravitate toward experiences that reinforce this belief. But a consciousness that has recognized its inherent completeness, that has integrated the lessons of all 12 zodiacal stages, gains access to what we might call the exit protocols. The Akashic records play a fascinating role in this process. These cosmic memory banks contain not just the history of every soul's journey, but the entire template of the learning system itself. During life reviews and between life planning sessions, souls access these records to understand their patterns and plan their next incarnation. But here's what most don't realize. The Akashic records also contain the blueprints for transcending the system altogether. Soul contracts made in these higher realms feel absolutely binding when viewed from limited consciousness. You might have agreed to experience abandonment in this lifetime to learn self-love, or chosen poverty to develop non-attachment to material security. These agreements, made with the guidance of soul groups and higher aspects of yourself, represent genuine wisdom at one level, but they're also fundamentally flexible, designed to be consciously altered as awareness expands. Breaking karmic cycles requires recognizing that the patterns aren't punishments or cosmic debts. They're teaching devices that become obsolete once the lesson is truly integrated. Consider Sarah, who attracted unavailable partners for decades, interpreting this as karmic payback for some past life betrayal. The real pattern wasn't cosmic justice. It was her own abandonment wound seeking resolution. The moment she healed her relationship with her own presence, stopped trying to earn love through suffering, the pattern dissolved. No cosmic debt collector came looking for payment because there was never actually a debt. Or take Marcus, born into generational poverty, watching his family struggle with money for generations. Traditional karmic thinking might suggest his soul chose this experience to learn about non-attachment or to balance some past life greed. But when Marcus began examining his family's unconscious money beliefs, the deep conviction that having wealth meant taking from others, that good people struggle while bad people prosper, he realized he could consciously rewrite this ancestral program. His prosperity didn't create karmic debt. It created a new template for his entire lineage. Saturn's role as cosmic examiner becomes clearer in this context. Saturn doesn't trap souls in endless lessons. It ensures integration actually occurs before advancement. Those challenging Saturn returns every 29 years aren't punishments, they're checkpoints. Opportunities to demonstrate that you've actually absorbed the wisdom rather than just intellectually understood it. Saturn asks, can you maintain your center when the old triggers arise? Have you truly transformed, or are you just managing symptoms? Trauma, viewed through this lens, represents soul memory seeking resolution across multiple lifetimes. Sometimes a phobia, chronic illness, or relationship pattern that has no clear origin in your current life experience points to unresolved imprints from previous incarnations. Past life regression can be profoundly healing, not because it changes what happened, but because it allows the soul to finally complete the processing that was interrupted by death. Some souls deliberately choose extremely challenging circumstances, not as punishment, but as accelerated clearing programs. They incarnate into abusive families, war zones, or societies in collapse, specifically to break ancestral cycles or clear collective karma in a single lifetime. These souls often feel like old spirits in young bodies, carrying wisdom that seems impossible given their chronological age. But here's the empowering truth. Understanding these mechanisms allows conscious navigation rather than unconscious repetition. Once you recognize that the spiritual path itself can become a subtle form of imprisonment, always one more lesson, one more lifetime, one more cycle of growth, you can begin asking different questions. Instead of, what do I need to learn? You might ask, what am I ready to remember? Instead of, how can I balance this karma? You might wonder, how can I transcend the karma game entirely? The zodiacal journey we've traced together isn't just about becoming a better person or even an enlightened one. It's about developing sufficient cosmic consciousness to recognize when you've graduated from the school of Earth experience. The soul that has truly integrated the lessons of all 12 signs, Aries' courage, Taurus's groundedness, Gemini's flexibility, Cancer's nurturing, Leo's authenticity, Virgo's discernment, Libra's balance, Scorpio's transformation, Sagittarius's wisdom-seeking, Capricorn's mastery, Aquarius's humanitarian vision, and Pisces' surrender gains something invaluable, the ability to choose consciously whether to return or to continue the journey beyond the wheel of incarnation. This isn't about escaping responsibility or avoiding growth. It's about recognizing when you've become qualified to teach rather than just learn, to serve from a place of completion rather than compensation. The ultimate, spiritual rebellion isn't against authority or society. It's against the assumption that you're forever incomplete, forever in need of another lesson, another lifetime, another chance to get it right. You already are what you've been seeking to become. The journey home isn't about earning your way back to source. It's about remembering that you never actually left. The ancient alchemists understood something profound that modern spirituality has largely forgotten. Transformation isn't about becoming something new. It's about refining what already exists within you into its highest expression. Your soul isn't randomly bouncing between lifetimes like a pinball. It's engaged in a sophisticated alchemical process, turning the lead of unconscious experience into the gold of awakened awareness. This process unfolds across what the medieval mystics called the 4 stages of the great work. But here's where it gets fascinating. These stages don't happen within a single lifetime. They spiral across multiple incarnations, each one building upon the last in an intricate dance of consciousness evolution. The first stage, nigredo, is the blackening. This is where souls experience the breakdown of illusion, the dark night that precedes dawn. Think of lifetimes filled with loss, betrayal, or profound disillusionment. The soul isn't being punished, it's being prepared. Every structure that seems solid must dissolve before true wisdom can emerge. Many souls spend several incarnations in various forms of nigredo, each one stripping away another layer of false identification. From this darkness comes albedo, the whitening, purification through awakening. These are the lifetimes where souls begin to see through the veil, where spiritual seeking becomes the driving force. The soul starts to remember its true nature, though often through contrast with what it is not. These incarnations frequently involve intense spiritual practices, mystical experiences, or profound service to others. The personality begins to serve the soul rather than the ego. Citrinitas, the yellowing, represents the emergence of spiritual gifts and illumination. Souls in this phase often incarnate as natural healers, teachers, or visionaries. They carry an inner knowing that manifests as wisdom, creativity, or the ability to catalyze transformation in others. These are the lifetimes where the soul's unique spiritual signature begins to shine through clearly, unobstructed by the heavy veils of earlier incarnations. Finally, rubedo, the reddening, is integration and wholeness. Here, the soul has learned to embody divine consciousness while fully engaged with human experience. These souls don't escape the world, they transform it through their presence. They've mastered the art of being simultaneously transcendent and immanent, eternal and temporal. Now, here's where astrology reveals its deeper purpose. Each zodiac sign represents a different alchemical chamber, a specific type of consciousness refinement. Aries lifetimes teach the soul about initiating divine will. Scorpio incarnations provide the deep psychological excavation necessary for transformation. Pisces lifetimes offer the dissolution that prepares the soul for rebirth into higher octaves of being. But souls don't work alone in this alchemical laboratory. They incarnate within soul families, groups of consciousness that have agreed to support each other's evolution across time. These relationships serve as alchemical catalysts, creating the precise conditions needed for transformation. Soulmates are fellow travelers from your soul family who take on various roles across lifetimes. In one incarnation, they might be your parent, teaching you about unconditional love. In another, they could be your greatest adversary, forcing you to develop strength and discernment. The key recognition with soulmates is a sense of familiarity, of having known each other before, because you have. Their birth charts often show strong connections, conjunctions, trines, or meaningful oppositions that create natural chemistry and shared lessons. Twin flames operate differently. These are mirror souls, two aspects of the same consciousness that separated to experience duality and eventual reunion. Twin flame relationships are intensely alchemical. They create the perfect friction needed to burn away everything that isn't authentic. These connections often activate the most challenging aspects in both natal charts simultaneously, creating a pressure cooker of transformation that can be both ecstatic and excruciating. The timing of when these soul connections appear isn't random. They're orchestrated by the same intelligence that guides planetary transits. When Saturn crosses your 7th house, that soulmate who will teach you about commitment might appear. When Pluto aspects your Venus, the twin flame encounter that will transform your understanding of love becomes possible. As souls progress through these alchemical stages across multiple lifetimes, something remarkable happens. The wheel of reincarnation begins to transform into a spiral. Instead of cycling through the same lessons repeatedly, the soul starts ascending to higher octaves of the same archetypal experiences. An advanced soul experiencing an Aries lifetime isn't learning basic lessons about identity and survival. They're exploring how to initiate collective transformation, how to be a spiritual warrior in service to planetary evolution. A mature soul in Libra isn't just learning about relationships. They're mastering the art of creating harmony between opposing forces on a cosmic scale. These advanced souls often carry what initiates call temple memory, direct access to wisdom from previous incarnations and the spaces between lives. They may spontaneously access the Akashic records, communicate with guides, or remember their pre-birth planning sessions. Their astrology charts often show strong outer planet aspects, indicating their readiness to work with transpersonal energies. For these souls, astrology evolves from a personality description tool into something far more sophisticated, a living oracle that reveals the energetic invitations available in each moment. Transits become opportunities for conscious co-creation with cosmic forces. The birth chart transforms into a map of their soul's intended service to the collective awakening. This is where we discover that liberation isn't about escaping the human experience, it's about bringing divine consciousness into every aspect of earthly life. The final incarnation isn't a graduation from the physical plane, it's a completion, where the soul has integrated all 12 archetypal lessons and chooses its next phase of service from a place of absolute freedom. Some souls merge back into source consciousness. Others choose to return as bodhisattvas, awakened beings who incarnate purely to assist in the evolution of consciousness itself. The path you're walking now is part of this greater alchemical work. Every challenge you face, every relationship you navigate, every moment of awakening you experience is contributing to the transformation of lead into gold, not just within your individual soul, but within the collective soul of humanity itself. There comes a moment in the soul's journey when the veil becomes so thin you can almost see through it. Not all at once, that would shatter the psyche completely, but gradually, like morning mist dissolving under the first rays of sunlight. One day you're living your life according to the familiar patterns, and the next you catch yourself observing your own thoughts as if they belong to someone else. You start questioning not just what you believe, but why you believe it, and more importantly, who is doing the believing. This awakening doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It whispers through synchronicities that become impossible to ignore, through dreams that feel more real than waking life, through moments when you look in the mirror and see ancient eyes staring back. The soul begins remembering what it knew before it forgot, that every identity you've ever worn, every role you've played across lifetimes, was nothing more than a costume borrowed for the sake of experience. Think about the shame you've carried, the fears that have shaped your choices, the limitations you've accepted as unchangeable truths about yourself. In this awakening space, you begin to see them for what they truly are, props in an elaborate theatrical production where you've been both the actor and the audience, forgetting you wrote the script yourself. The Scorpio lifetime where you explored the depths of transformation, the Capricorn incarnation where you learned about structure and authority, the Pisces existence where you dissolved into universal love. None of these were punishments or random assignments. They were carefully chosen experiences designed to teach your soul different octaves of consciousness. The most profound shift happens in how you relate to suffering. Where once you might have asked, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this teaching me?" And eventually, "How did I design this experience to serve my evolution?" The pain doesn't disappear overnight, but it transforms from something that happens to you into something that happens through you. Every challenging experience becomes a form of spiritual alchemy, burning away the dross of unconscious patterns to reveal the gold of awareness beneath. Your relationships begin shifting in ways that can be both beautiful and unsettling. You stop needing others to validate your worth because you remember that worth was never something you could lose. You stop trying to fix people because you recognize that everyone is exactly where they need to be for their soul's curriculum. When you look at someone who triggers you, instead of seeing an enemy or obstacle, you begin to see another aspect of consciousness, wearing a different mask, playing their role in the cosmic drama with the same dedication you've brought to yours. This doesn't make you passive or indifferent. If anything, it makes you more present, more responsive to what each moment is actually asking of you rather than what your conditioning thinks it should be asking. You might find yourself speaking up in situations where you once stayed silent, or remaining peacefully quiet in circumstances where you once felt compelled to react. The difference is that your responses arise from center rather than from the accumulated wounds and defenses of your temporary identities. The fear of death, which has driven so much human behavior across centuries, begins to dissolve when you viscerally understand that what you truly are cannot die. Bodies wear out, personalities fade, even souls complete their learning cycles, but the essence that animates all of it, the consciousness that has been looking through your eyes in every lifetime, that remains untouched by time or circumstance. You start to see death not as an ending but as a graduation ceremony, a moment when the soul sheds its current form like a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. What's particularly fascinating is how this awakening transforms your relationship with the zodiacal energies we've been exploring. Instead of being unconsciously driven by Aries impulsiveness or trapped in Virgo perfectionism, you begin to work with these archetypal forces as conscious tools. You can call upon Gemini's curiosity when you need to learn something new, or invoke Cancer's nurturing when someone needs emotional support, all while maintaining awareness that you are the one choosing to express these qualities rather than being compelled by them. The world around you doesn't necessarily become easier to navigate, but it becomes infinitely more interesting. You start recognizing that what appears to be chaos and conflict on the surface is actually a perfectly orchestrated dance of consciousness, exploring every possible variation of experience. Wars, natural disasters, political upheavals, even these begin to make sense as larger patterns of collective awakening, moments when humanity is forced to confront its shadows and choose between fear and love on a massive scale. You realize you came here not to escape the world but to transform it through your presence. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to model what awakened consciousness looks like in human form, not through preaching or trying to convince others, but simply by being authentic, present, and responsive to what life is asking of you moment by moment. You become a bridge between dimensions, carrying the remembrance of your eternal nature while remaining fully engaged with your temporary human experience. Perhaps the most liberating recognition is that you were never actually lost, never truly separate from the divine source, never bound by the wheel of reincarnation in the way you once believed. The entire journey of forgetting and remembering, of falling into unconsciousness and awakening again, has been a cosmic game of hide and seek that consciousness plays with itself. You are not a victim of some cosmic curriculum imposed from outside. You are the author, director, and star of your own spiritual evolution. This understanding brings a quality of peace that has nothing to do with circumstances and everything to do with remembering your true nature. It's not the peace of withdrawal or spiritual bypassing, but the radiant peace of someone who knows they are exactly where they belong, doing exactly what they came here to do. This peace becomes contagious, touching everyone you encounter in ways both subtle and profound. We're living through a time when this awakening is happening not just individually but collectively. Linear time is giving way to sacred time. Hierarchical structures are dissolving into networks of conscious collaboration, and more souls are remembering their true nature than perhaps ever before in human history. You're not awakening alone. You're part of a planetary shift in consciousness that has been building for generations. The invitation now is to live differently, to speak from your center rather than your conditioning, to love with a remembering heart that sees the divine essence in everyone you meet, to recognize that every moment offers you the choice between unconscious repetition and conscious creation. The wheel of experience continues turning, but you no longer need to be unconsciously driven by it. You can dance with it, play with it, create with it, knowing that you are both the dancer and the dance itself. If this exploration of awakening and conscious evolution has touched something deep within you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."